And we're live.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to today's watch party of Silver Bullet. I'm here with my co-host, Dom, and Sharon is back with us this week for Silver Bullet. Welcome, Sharon.
Thank you very much, Carla. It's great to be here. This is one of my favorite Stephen King adaptations, and I wouldn't miss it.
Mine too. It's up there. I would say it's in my top 5 Stephen King adaptations for sure. And it's one that is so funny. I tend to forget over the years, but as soon as I think of it or is brought back into my memory, just a rush of like good feels I get when I think of this film.
Yeah, me too. And I watched this just a couple months ago, not knowing we were going to have a watch party. And it's just such a great experience watching. It takes me back to my childhood when the first time I saw it. It's just as good now as when I first saw it.
It is definitely one of those movies that benefits from nostalgia. Watching it as a kid and then going back to it, it's almost better. It ages like a fine wine in that regard. Yes. I think if you were to watch it for the first time now, you might be a little disappointed, especially with such high praise surrounding it.
Right, and especially comparing to the other werewolf movies that we've seen. You know, it might be a little bit disappointing, but I think you have to, you know, look just beyond the monster in this film and look at the other elements of it, the storyline, the connection between the relationships between the people in the film also are very, very strong. And what makes the film as well. I don't remember, you know, I don't actually remember the first time I watched it. I just remember it being on TV a lot growing up. And I just always was just gravitated towards watching it on TV, and was interesting because watching it again last night, there was a lot more cursing than I remember, because on TV, you know, they edit out all that stuff. So I was like, oh, I don't remember them saying that. Okay, Jane, all right. So, but yeah, how about you? When was your first time watching this? And for those of us in the chat, if this is your first time watching it, put a 1 in the chat. And if you've seen this movie too many times to count, put a 2 in the chat.
I remember seeing this in the movie theater. I was in high school at the time. And of course, back in the 80s, anybody who has lived through the 80s, back then, Stephen King was so prolific. It's like every year he was releasing a book. And then it got to the point where a year or two after that, we would be treated with a movie of that adaptation. So I remember seeing it in the movie theater, maybe opening weekend, maybe sometime soon thereafter. Mm-hmm. But then, of course, it was on TV all the time. We had the videos, so I was renting the video constantly. And it, you know what, Dom, it really does age well. But for some people seeing it now for the first time, it might be a little bit cheesy and maybe under, what's the word I'm looking for? It certainly didn't have a big production budget, but it's got a lot of heart and it's got a great story that I think make up for it, even though it's not a big slasher movie like some of other Stephen King stories. He really does capture the small town, gone amok feel.
Yes. That is his specialty.
Yeah. Yeah, and that would be a great topic of discussion with some of his other endeavors into small town America. Like small town America has a nightmare. Stephen King's Nightmare visits small town America. And he's done that on numerous occasions.
Right.
So anybody watching this for the first time, I hope you enjoyed as much as we do. And if not, then we're certainly open for great discussion and debate, because I don't think everybody's going to get the same feel. And that's what makes this community so great, is we just all don't have the same experience and the same feeling towards it.
Yeah.
Right.
I remember the first time I watched this film, I remember it very well because as a kid in the 90s, the three people who showed me all the movies of the 80s were my dad, showing me tons and tons and tons of 80s movies that he loved, my brother showing me all the horror movies that I wasn't supposed to see, and my sister showing me essentially Labyrinth on a big loop, because my sister is 13 years older than me, and she used to babysit me a lot, and she used to really want to sell me to the Goblin King. But this movie was one that my sister showed me, and my sister showed me this movie because my older brother, who's 11 years older than me, he suffers from a disability known as Williams syndrome, which means his bones aren't too great, and he has a very mild form of autism. But he was in a wheelchair a lot as a kid, and she had a very similar relationship to my brother, her younger brother, as the brother and sister do in Silver Bullet. And I remember her showing this to me. She might have shown it to me when I was young, really young, but I remember watching it on a semi-legal VHS tape. It was a copy of someone's that we made many years ago. And yeah, it was so grainy. I believe it was a copy of the theatrical cut. It wasn't a TV cut, because I remember certain phrases very well, especially from Everett McGill. But yeah,
and
it was
of course,
a great experience.
When they show these movies on TV, all the good parts are edited out. All the foul language is edited out.
Of course.
Which makes it great for kids to watch it. And then when you want the real movie, the whole movie, then you've got to rent it.
Yep. Oh, well, we have a few people here. It's their first time seeing it. About 4 or 5. And then the rest they've seen it too many times to count. So we are going to get started again. The sync point is where it says Dino De Laurentiis presents. And we're going to have our countdown now in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the score for this film is interesting. It has elements, I feel, of different other King and even John Carpenter films, but it's done by Jay Chataway, who's mostly known for doing Star Trek Next Generation, Deep Star Nine, Voyager. He mostly is composed for TV, although he has done he did Red Sonja, I think. And he's also done Maniac Cop. But I do like the score. It's different, but I do like it.
I think the score is all over the place in a good way. It feels like someone's mixtape.
Exactly.
It is a very 80s soundtrack. Very 80s.
Mm-hmm.
So on a side note, I met Gary Busey in probably the late 90s, early 2000s. I was working at a grocery store and he came in. And of course, everybody knows who he is. He's got a very distinctive look.
Right.
And let's just say from my interaction with him, he is just like you'd expect. In a good way. He was not belligerent. He wasn't nasty, just very Gary Busey.
Right.
And there's no other way to describe it, is there?
There's no other way. it sounds like he doesn't really know what he's talking about in a coherent way, but he's just so likable. He was so much fun.
That's great. Well, this movie, Silver Bullet, was based on the Stephen King novella, Cycle of the Werewolf, where in the novella, it takes place over the course of a year, and each chapter is a month. For this movie, it just takes place over a couple of months. But I'm just curious, what is your favorite Stephen King adaptation? Or your top, like, 2 or 3 favorites?
The Mist, for sure. My favorite Stephen King book on its own is The Stand, but I love the Dark Tower series. That's my favorite piece of King literature, is the whole Dark Tower franchise. And what they did with the movie was expected, depressingly expected. The cast was perfectly cast, but what they did with the film was just, they just farted it out, which was upsetting.
Yeah, that was good. I think they adapted Salem's Lot, the miniseries.
Oh yeah.
I thought that was a lot of fun and very well done. The remake of the Salem's Lot, which came out in the 90s with Rob Lowe, was different. It was different. It had a different feel. Oh yeah, so we have our first decapitation.
Yes.
In the movie.
Yes, first monster creature kill.
Yeah, this was great. That was a great kill.
Yes.
Oh, Dr. Sleep as well. Yeah, Sparky Jonas said Dr. Sleep.
Oh,
Dr. Sleep, Mike Flanagan did something I didn't expect. I went into that movie expecting it to disappoint me, at least on one front. Either betray the film that Stanley Kubrick did or betray the book. And it somehow did neither and respected both, which was impressive because in the book, spoiler alert for The Shining, the hotel, the Overlook, doesn't survive the original book. And yet they incorporate the whole fiasco into Dr. Sleep, the movie, because Dr. Sleep is based on the sequel book to The Shining, Dr. Sleep. And I don't know how he did it. Mike Flanagan somehow adapted both a sequel to the book and a sequel to the film. And I could do nothing less than applaud, because I left impressed, very impressed.
Yes, that was a good film.
Well, I have held off on Dr. Sleep. And I think it's just that love of the original novel. Because you're right. The ending of the book was just perfect. I thought the book was perfect. The movie, it did the story justice, but yet it didn't in my book. And then Dr. Sleep came out and I thought, sometimes you don't want to mess with a good thing. It could go horribly wrong, or they could maybe, like you're saying, Dom, that they really stayed true to that. Stephen King's just his stories are just, either they can go horribly wrong or they can really bring them to light.
Right. Now, what I like about this story in this movie is that they're really taking the time to build the relationship and show the relationship between the characters. So already we're starting off seeing kind of the tension between Marty and his sister, his older sister. Also,
and the beauty of their relationship is that they don't dislike each other. They fight because they're siblings, and that's what siblings do. But but he's upset. He's upset what happened.
And anybody who has anyone who has brothers or sisters can relate. You can still hate them and want to kill them, but yet you're loyal and you love them to death.
Exactly.
And with the introduction of their strong bond at the beginning of this movie, that's the heart of the movie.
Yes. And
Stephen King does heart
it's
very well.
interesting too that the movie is told from her perspective. She's narrating this, and kind of looking back at this summer, at this time in their lives. So I thought that was interesting that the film is narrated from her perspective when really she's not necessarily there for all the action in the film. But what's interesting is that the actress narrating it is the actress from The Walking Dead. Her name is Tova Feldshuh, and she had a role of Deanna Monroe on AMC's The Walking Dead. She's the narrator of the film. And the narration, she tells you that they're looking back on the year 1976 that this film is set in. And so I'm going to ask, I need the chat's help here. So the film is set in 1976, but sprinkled throughout the movie are a bunch of 80s references and 80s stuff, which doesn't make sense that the film is supposed to be in 1976. So you can let us know when it comes up. Let us know in the chat if you spot something.
I'll play a drinking game with you. I'll take a sip from my Bib Zero every time we spot an 80s reference.
The make and model of a vehicle, items in a bedroom, different things. So
the stress sense, for example, very, very 70s.
The station wagon with the wood trim. Yeah, my parents had one just like that in the 70s.
Right. Yep. That's a 1979 Ford.
Station I'll allow wagon. It because I'm thirsty, but yeah, station wagon, I'll take a sip.
And fun fact, with those kind of station wagons, kids used to roam free in the back. We never ever had seatbelts.
Oh, that's right.
One of the interesting facts about the prior scene, when she was kind of spying on that adult conversation, one of the other stories that Stephen King wrote, it focused on the kids of the town and how the kids knew something was off in their town. The grown-ups weren't the ones that saw it. Grown-ups ignored trouble. The grown-ups were clueless, but the kids were the ones that saw it, felt it, experienced it. And with this movie, now we have the kids in the middle of this. Spoiler alert, coming up, they're the ones that kind of put things together where the grown-ups really didn't have a clue. And I think that's one of Stephen King's strong points.
He definitely has his tropes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and don't worry, it is just a soda that I'm drinking. So I, as hard as you might try, I can't possibly get wasted. How many Stephen King tropes can we find as well? There's a drunk.
Right.
There's the church. Infidelity. Does that count? Will that count?
Grown-up secrets.
Yeah. Kids solving the problem. Scooby-Doo.
Dom, Sparky John says, is drinking and doing tech a good idea?
Exactly. I'll be sober, don't you worry. Who plays piano when people are trying to go to sleep? Especially when you have a daughter who's trying to go to sleep?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that the man she's having an affair with?
Yes, I believe so.
That she has a framed photo in her bedroom.
And I don't think it's covered in the movie as to, well, not to give it away what's going to happen, but just enjoy the scene.
Right.
A small town like most of his stories. Yep, I'll take a sip.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that they struggle with the most in making this film was getting the design of the werewolf down.
Well, when you're following acts like American Werewolf in London and The Howling, when it's been done so perfectly, you kind of just have to do what you can to make it not comparable to those two.
Right. Well, Stephen King really didn't even want the werewolf to be shown that much. He wanted it to be hidden in the film, and the werewolf was supposed to be able to talk in the original script. Thank God they took that out. But yeah, and so the producer, Dino De Laurentiis, was like, no, we need a creature werewolf that can be seen.
So a werewolf talking as in, hey, how you doing? Talking.
I think so.
Yeah, that would make no sense.
God, Grandma was ready, straight from piano, straight from the keys to the gun in a split second. I wouldn't want to break into that house.
Okay, but she had to be quicker than that, though. She wasn't fast
did.
enough.
It's the arthritis it gets you when you get to our age.
Now, this is
My
Terry
ankles feel it all the
O'Quinn
time.
when he had hair. So, you know, this is an 80s film.
And when Corey Haim was in this movie, he then went to the Lost Boys within 2 years. Was it 2 or 3 years? When did Lost Boys come out?
2 years, 87.
2 years. And yet it looked like he grew up about, well, actually it looks like he didn't grow
5,
up
6
at all.
years.
He still had that baby face.
He did, but his voice is totally different. He's clearly gone through some change.
Right.
Yeah.
I wish these kind of exchanges happened in bars.
Now, I will always know that guy as the father from In Life Goes On.
Life Goes On.
Yes. He will always be Corky's father
Yes.
to me.
Yep. And Becca. I think the gal, his
Yes.
sister's name was Becca. Yeah. That was a great show.
Now, can someone in the chat help me out here? But I think the guy behind the bar with the peacemaker bat, was he in Reservoir Dogs? I feel like his familiar. I think he was like in Reservoir Dogs. I think he was the guy that kind of brought them all together.
He was he Mr. Brown? The head of the clan in Reservoir Dogs, or Mr. White?
Sparky John says, yes, he was in Reservoir Dogs.
So I gotta say, as a child in the 80s, one of the things that Stephen King did right to attract me to his works was he did really create three-dimensional children in his stories that I related to. And especially these kids that were inquisitive, that wanted to know what was going on in their town and figure it out and help each other. It really attracted me because I had a very, very difficult childhood. And when they say that children who don't really have power in their lives to say anything or do anything about it, they gravitate towards stuff like this. That is an outlet, a safe outlet. That is one of the big reasons why, especially these stories of Stephen King's, where the kids had a major role in the story to propel it along, and that resolution at the end.
Yeah.
I got to hand it to him. I was reading Stephen King everywhere I was. On field trips, I had a Stephen King book. Always reading that, and would rather read that than the classics that I was supposed to be reading in school.
Yeah.
And it really helped me out of a difficult childhood. So for anybody else out there that may have been in a similar situation, I don't need to go into detail, but ways to get through your childhood without being destructive to yourself. It's phenomenal. And I give Stephen King a lot of credit for helping me through that.
Yeah, I mean, he was, he just, as Sparky John said, that he really knew how to make relatable kids
Yeah.
in his stories, to show their vulnerability, their weaknesses, their strengths, how they overcame challenges. Um, and no,
Stand by
that
Me
always,
is
exactly.
Yeah.
Stand by
a
Me, The
great
Shine,
example of that.
It is
Yes.
another
Yeah.
great example.
Yeah. It was one of my all-time favorites. And the kids really, well, for anyone that hasn't read it, the kids take on the beast and conquer it. And that resonates for a kid going through some really hard times that can't overcome that in their own lives because of them being powerless.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Now,
it was amazing.
Here we have the introduction of Uncle Red, Gary Busey, who ad-libbed most of his lines, if not all. So they would do the take as is, and he knew the script, he was professional, he did the script, but they would let him ad-lib. And they ended up using most of the shots with him ad-libbing the scene. And Stephen King was okay with it, you know, because Gary Busey really felt connected to this character. And I think it really shows. I think this is one of his, I don't know if it's one of his best roles, but for me, it's one of my favorite roles of Gary Busey. How about you in the chat? What is your favorite Gary Busey role?
I like to think this is just Gary Busey being himself, and they made a story around his day-to-day life. It's actually a documentary on Busey himself.
He's probably really drunk too in this.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be surprised.
Well, he does have that natural energy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Robin Williams exuded it all the time. Sometimes it's better to just let him go.
Yeah. Timestamp at the moment is about 1951. From my copy, anyway. I've ridden on one of those stair lifts because I used to work in the hospital that had one, and they need to be tested every now and then. They're surprisingly terrifying. If you don't strap yourself in, you feel like you're going to fall out of that chair.
Onzi says another pre-crazy Gary Busey role that was good was Predator 2.
Yeah.
I remember him with Point Break. With Keanu Reeves, he was in that. That was good. Under Siege. The Under Siege films were good.
Seagal.
That is another iconic Busey role.
Yes. Someone said Lethal Weapon.
In Under Siege, yeah.
Yes, when I rode the stair lift, I did fear for my safety, much like the evil neighbor in Gremlins. I expected it to happen. Luckily, it didn't.
So I love the part of the story where their brother and sister relationship mirrors her kids, their relationship.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's not just the kids that have that love-hate.
Right. You never grow out of it.
Never.
Now, what wrestling is he watching? NWA. I'm like, that's not, I don't recall that being with wrestling. Probably just made up some wrestling federation for the film.
The wrestler in the ring almost looked like Lou Ferrigno. But yeah, that's not the 80s wrestling that we're used to, like WrestleMania.
Oh yeah, it's probably like pre-80s.
Yeah. So I don't know if this would be a spoiler, and kind of looking ahead, but when I watched this movie last night as a refresher, and I don't know in the movie if they ever do call out how these victims were picked out, but
They
I have
do.
They
I
do.
have a theory with, I mean, I don't want to say it without giving away too much.
Right.
But they have something in common.
They all have something in common, and I don't think
Mhm.
I'd ever picked it up until I saw it last night.
That these aren't just random killings. You know. Also, I know that Stephen King wanted to do something different than your typical slasher or werewolf films, because there was a ton. I didn't realize there were a ton of werewolf films in the 80s, tons. And so he's coming in kind of on the mid to tail end of that kind of werewolf, craze, and right in the middle of the slasher craze. And this movie at times does feel like a slasher, more so than a werewolf. And I wanted to get folks in the chat and your take on that. Kind of this feeling of this, it's a slasher, it's a werewolf film.
Yes.
Kind of your sense on that so far.
Yeah, I don't think I have my little cheat sheet because he had written so many books in the 80s. But yeah, up until this point, I don't think he hadn't written any kind of werewolf monster story like that.
Right.
And by this came out in 1985. Yeah, there were a ton of werewolf movies that had already come out.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, the 80s was almost lousy with werewolf movies. Not enough vampires. I love how he jumps so much at a spider. And
No, I'm not gonna laugh because that would be me. So I cannot laugh. So
but everything else that happens. Oh wait, no, yeah. I believe like something makes a slight noise. Yeah. And he blasts it to smithereens. And then there's other crazy things going on. And he's like, what? He just doesn't care. Like this. Here is where I'd start shooting, not the slight noise.
I start running.
Yeah.
But you figure he's drunk.
Oh yeah. Oh.
Oof.
Oh
if his
yeah.
blood alcohol content is that high, would the
This is the
werewolf get
newspaper that says September 8th, 1980. Friday, September 8th, 1980.
You are right, Carla. So if Carla, you have a drink, you have to drink, right?
Okay.
That is the game.
I'll drink
Is
my
that a
water.
radioactive symbol on the sheriff's department?
Yeah, I think that's where they can put the radioactive waste. They have a safe compartment in there.
Now this location again is in Maine. That's another Stephen King trope. But apparently this Tarker's Mills lies between Misery's Dairy and its Castle Rock.
Oh, Derry was
Dairy was
Derry was it. Yeah.
Right. And
several
Castle
stories
Rock.
actually were in Derry.
Exactly. So it's like you have your choice. You could be terrorized by Pennywise, kidnapped by Annie Wilkes, or stalked by a werewolf. Pick your poison.
What kind of an asshole makes his disabled friend climb a tree to get his kite out of it? He's not a good friend, dude. Move on. You can do better. She gets a pass. She's his sister.
Well, you know what? Isn't that what best friends do?
No.
You know, even if your disabled friend gets his kite stuck in a tree, like, hey, dude, get it yourself.
Okay, yeah, we'd probably say it, but to actually make him do it? Oof. It's a bit mean. You got it up there, you get it yourself.
Oh, there was a good question. Anzi just asked you, Dom, how did he even climb up that tree? We never did see him climb up that tree.
Pure upper body strength. We see him descend
Right.
a ladder later.
And I get the sense here that he knows that this is going to be maybe the last time he sees his friend.
Maybe he has a little bit of the shine in him.
You know what, Carl? I think it was him looking back at his friend, knowing the evil that had been going on in town, worrying about his friend. And he probably should have said something. Hey, dude, you probably should go home.
Right.
I love how he's wearing his clip-on tie. How did that not trend as a fashion trend?
I do live in a small town right now, and this does kind of ring true, almost. Our law enforcement, wouldn't be that kind of lazy with the tie, but we do have a really big sense of community here. And a lot of talk goes on between everybody in town. Everybody knows what's going on in town. Right. Everybody knows.
Now, I liked how they didn't show us. They showed us the bloody kite and the father's reaction, but they didn't show us. Now we're gonna have to talk about this father's reaction.
Well, what I'd like to mention is they even let him near him.
Right. That was right.
You tries to stop him. Just not very well.
He didn't really try, and he let the father run off.
I mean, compared to Pet Sematary, the father's scream, and this one was just a little bit underwhelming for me.
Oh yeah, Pet Sematary, another great epic Stephen King adaptation.
Exactly. That was an epic no.
I remember reading the book Pet Sematary on a school field trip. And I would have much rather read the book than actually gone to wherever we were going in the field trip. That was such a great, riveting novel.
That was a great book.
My mom told me much later in my life that I was about that size and age of the same stature of Gage in Pet Sematary. So she would not let me go anywhere near a road.
Did she actually read the book too? So she knew the outcome? Yeah.
Oh, Sparky John said the reason we didn't see the body is that the practical effect of the dummy was so bad. The actor said just focus on, it was cut.
I thought that scene was more powerful without actually seeing what we knew it was.
Exactly.
Than actually seeing what it was.
I would have loved to see the bloodied up puppet, though. I can't imagine what they would have used, but I imagine it would have been great. Especially with some of the cheese in this movie, especially with the fog scene. What happens with the baseball bat?
Yeah, this is one of the worst fog scenes that has been produced for motion pictures.
That shin level fog.
It's so bad.
It is so bad.
It's good. It's so bad. It's good.
It is.
Like you have to appreciate the artistry that it took to get it that bad.
You know, they tried. They really tried with the money they had, with the props they had.
If John Carpenter can make the fog look frightening, why couldn't they on a set that looks like it belongs on season 1 of The Next Generation?
They had a budget of $7 million. Where did that money go?
It didn't go into the fog machine. Maybe it went into insuring Corey Haim for driving on a road with a motorized vehicle.
Oh boy.
Now, did you know that they had two directors for this film? The actual director that started off with the film was Don Coscarelli, who did Phantasm movies. He started off and he filmed a majority of the scenes up until the werewolf scenes, because they didn't have the werewolf suit. They were still trying to figure out the design. So he was like, well, we can't delay anymore. I'll just film everything else. And he filmed everything else. They were still fighting over the design of the werewolf. And he didn't know what was going on with the movie. So he just resigned. He was like, you know what, I'm out. So then they brought in the credited director of the film, Dan Attias. And this is his only movie he did. He does a lot of TV, Sopranos, Deadwood, Entourage, a lot of TV work, but this is his only film.
It's a lot of HBO there, isn't it?
Yeah,
oh wait, no, it's Entourage Showtime. I can't remember.
I think it's HBO. So, and that might also, I mean, for it to have two directors, it feels a little disjointed. But again,
it doesn't show very much.
But it doesn't show because I think it's because he did everything except kind of the werewolf sequences.
I have a huge Mandela effect with this movie because I remember the town being called Tucker Mills, not Tucker's Mills. Like it is just false memory, most likely. Or I'm from Universe B. And I know the Berenstein Bears. I can't remember what they're actually called now. It's Berenstein or Berenstein. Oh my God. Bernstein. I think it's Bernstein or Berenstain.
Bernstein. I've heard Bernstein.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Bernstein because it's spelled like Frankenstein.
Right.
But I think I always heard it as like Berenstein.
So is there, the correct pronunciation?
Yeah, in the chat, could someone look that up for us? Is it Berenstain or Berenstein or Berenstein?
This is a pretty powerful scene with the father.
It is very
powerful scene.
A subtle, powerful sadness.
Fun fact, years later, Terry O'Quinn would play a character in a wheelchair in the TV show Lost.
Mm-hmm.
And he played it rather convincingly.
Yes.
More convincingly than Corey Haim.
What are some
many shots where... Oh, go on.
Oh, no, I was just going to ask folks in the chat, what were their other favorite Terry O'Quinn roles? Because I really liked him in Lost. That was kind of
I've seen a lot of Stepfather in
yeah,
the chat.
He's one of those actors that I think has been in everything, but yet naming something, all I can think of is Lost and The Stepfather.
This nice long shot here, I can only imagine was a pain in the ass to shoot because Everett's running all over the road, telling everyone to stop. And the cars are just going past at an uncomfortable speed. I'd prefer it if they were doing like 10, 15 miles an hour instead of like 20, 30. Where do these hounds always come from? These trained body hounds. Every town has them.
Yeah, they do. Small town folk, we have them.
Huge bloodhounds. They just come out of nowhere.
You know, they don't even really know what they're looking for.
Right. They're angry and they're going out to search for whoever tore the kid up. And I guess they figure they'll know when they find it.
I guess so.
Okay. Dave Mays has said it should be pronounced Berenstain.
Okay. Oh, by the
It's
way,
Berenstain.
those dogs look like Great Danes, not bloodhounds.
Yeah. I think I saw
But
a
again-
Dalmatian as well.
This is just a movie.
Right.
How are people not pulling out their like chihuahuas and their shih tzus?
Oh my gosh. You know, it never ends well when you have an angry mob.
No.
Never ends well.
Apart from in Critters 2. Oh no, Critters 1? I can't remember which one has the angry mob. It's Critters 2. Critters 2 has the angry mob. It
I mean,
ends quite well there.
well, not for the folks in this latest Halloween movie, I tell you that much.
No.
That mob.
That's
did
because
not-
they brought an iron. Like they should have brought the Peacemaker. Oh, see, this is just comedy. Like it's horror, but
But
the expression on his
Oh.
face, the joy, and then
this is giving me Return of the Living Dead comedy feels.
exactly. How do you
Well, you don't
accidentally
expect him
let
to
go
start
of a
getting
bear
killed
trap?
when, you know, it's the comedy of, oh man, he's getting eaten. No, it's just a trap.
It's just a bear trap.
It's a bear trap.
See, this set here, it looks like it belongs on the set of Star Trek: The Next Generation Season 1. It looks adorable. Someone's going to tell me this isn't actually a set and this is filmed on location, aren't they? They made a
They picked,
great
like, the
job of making it
worst-
look like
No.
a set.
I know.
This looks like a set.
Yeah.
for sure. This is the worst, like the worst time, like to go try to find someone at night where there's fog in brush, like you can't really see.
Did we miss it? Did they say that these attacks only happen at midnight with the full moon?
So question for the chat, what was Wes Craven film that Everett McGill was in? So when you see Everett McGill, the actor, you don't think nice guy. You
I
think
do.
he's about to be crazy. He's about to do something crazy.
I think of him from Twin Peaks. He's always Big Ed to me.
Oh, see, I really think of him as from the Wes Craven film. And let's see who guessed it.
Mhm.
Yes, People Under the Stairs. That's what I kind of think of him from. People Under the Stairs, and then this movie. But you know what? But you know what my most favorite Everett McGill film is? Quest for Fire. I don't know if you've
That's
seen Quest for
right.
Fire. If you haven't seen it out there, if you've seen Quest for Fire in the chat, put a 1 if you've seen it. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it.
Again, he's one of those actors that was in a ton of stuff that it's not on the tip of my tongue until you say it, and then
Yeah.
yes, that's right.
I love this scene. It's so goofy.
It's Fog does not act like that. But it makes for a great effect. Absolutely.
Yes.
I'm just imagining him just shuffling on the ground.
I live out in the middle of nowhere in rural America, and out in open land like that, it is dark, 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 dark. There's no street lights. Even with the lights that they might have brought, you're not going to see anything like this.
Oh my God. I just have to say, classic. He steals a Peacemaker bat. And starts
And you see the
beating
arm.
him. You see the furry arm. Wow.
Kills me every time. Also, I know that this is a bit of a rug pull, but why are they swaying at a funeral? Who does that? Who sways jollily to a song at a funeral.
So the timing is gonna be off for this because obviously a funeral, it does take a couple days. So this would be a couple days later. And is it just me, or does it seem to always be a full moon? Every single night seems to be a full moon.
Mm.
But if you stay with the werewolf lore,
Right.
but I think there's a loose adaptation with that going on.
Now this upcoming scene is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
They used, they had a total of like 70 extras that they had to divide up into groups at various levels, like makeup and costumes and stuff. And I'm like, they didn't get the main werewolf right, but I thought they did fairly well with this sequence.
And if you're seeing this for the first time, it doesn't necessarily give any big reveal,
Right.
this sequence. But later on, you can kind of put this in the place of maybe it does.
Right. Right. Now I have a question for you guys in the chat. For the most what the F dream sequence, which film did it better? This one, Silver Bullet, where the werewolves go to church, or An American Werewolf in London, the Nazi werewolf home invasion?
My opinion is this one fits better into the story. It in the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
I'd agree.
Yes, that the American Werewolf in London, that came out of nowhere.
It was out of nowhere. And I don't know how it, well, I mean, it does relate to the story, but this one really gets to the heart of what's going on in this guy.
Right. Right.
I prefer this dream sequence. Overall, though, I do prefer American Werewolf in London.
Mm-hmm.
I love that movie.
I know. I think for like what the F moment was probably American Werewolf in London. Like,
Yeah.
You know, that was very shocking and startling. You're like, okay. And even to this day, when I watch it, I still forget that scene's coming up, and it still gets me.
Yeah.
Well, I think one fits, but this one fits better. Like Sharon, I agree with you. This one definitely fits better to the narrative of the story.
But they're two different movies in essence.
Yes.
American Werewolf in London is basically a werewolf movie with all the horror and the transformations. This is more of the Stephen King with the bad guy, the horror being a werewolf.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost, in a lot of Stephen King's works, it's secondary, the undertone of the story, which drives the characters, is that beast. But American Werewolf in London is classic. I mean, here's the beast, it's a werewolf, and we get to see all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the evil in most Stephen King stories tends to be a metaphor for the evil of humanity. I think I have that exact shirt in my closet that Gary Busey's wearing.
You mean the flower one?
Yeah, I think I do.
Now, isn't Gary Busey's son a big time actor as well?
Yeah, Starship Troopers, I believe, is the
He
movie I know him best for.
He was on the set too. He was around about the same age as Corey Haim, I think. And he would hang out on the set, and they became pretty good friends. And he thought it was this movie where he thought to himself, I want to do that. I want to act. I can act. I want to be an actor. So, yeah. His name is Jake Busey, right? Jake Busey.
No, let's get out Google. What is his son's name?
Jake Busey, I believe you're correct. Go on, how good is my Busey shirt impression?
Oh,
Close. It's close.
Very close.
Okay. Darn, I should have revealed it with a ta-da.
Now, those are some nice wheels.
Yeah.
That's, I don't know if I would want my son riding around and that on the streets, but there's really no one on the streets now. Half of the town is gone. So
How is Mom not totally sus about Uncle Red sneaking off, going, hey, and running around the corner?
Well, again, one of the nuances of this story is that with all the horror going on, the parents are almost acting like it's no big deal.
Not happening.
I mean, everything's
Right.
fine.
right. Oh, sure, go out by yourself riding somewhere. We
Sure.
don't know where you're going because you don't have a cell phone because it's 76 and we don't know how to contact you. Sure.
Apparently I have to roll these up a little as well, do I?
Yeah, go off by yourself, drive your bike, no problem.
Overtake some cars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that thing is really fast.
Now that's definitely Corey, but
Yeah, that's
was
Corey. The long
was the
shots.
other person Corey,
Right.
or was it a stunt person in a wig?
Likely a stunt person.
Also, how is he always running out of gas?
I know.
Okay, Dom, that is almost the exact same shirt.
Yep.
Yep. Speaking of
So-
Corey Haim, oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to ask folks, what is your favorite Corey Haim film? And it doesn't have to be horror. It could be Lucas, Lost Boys. I'm going to even say Dream a Little Dream, License to Drive, this one, and I'm sure I'm forgetting something else. But how about you guys? What is your favorite Corey Haim performance film?
Lost Boys.
Lost Boys.
Lost Boys for sure. I
Mhm.
related to his character in Lost Boys so much.
How about you, Sharon?
Yeah, you know what? I think he shined in Lost Boys with the other kid actors.
Mm-hmm.
The other
Yeah.
Corey.
Yeah.
Lost Boys. I have a soft spot for Lucas.
Hmm.
I do.
Oh,
really
yeah,
have a
that was
soft
another
spot for
good one.
Lucas.
But yeah, I was going to ask everyone if they either have an uncle like Red, or do they wish they had one? I always wish I had an uncle like that.
I think I have that jacket as well. Oh
I kinda
God,
had
I'm
I
growing up
kinda
to
had-
be Gary
Oh,
Busey.
wow. I kind of had an uncle like that. I would say he was alcoholic, but he was a fun, loving drunk, and he was a ton of fun. And I would go over to his house, my cousin, and we would hang out, and he was just fun. He was fun, and we pretty much got it. He let us do anything. But yeah. Oh, David May says, I am an uncle like that.
Oh, fantastic.
So I have a story about fireworks. When the scene comes up, someone remind me, but
Okay. The pivotal scene that's coming up.
I would have been screwed. Let's just say this. If I only had one rocket,
Okay.
I would not have survived.
Me neither.
But yeah, here, pure upper body and core strength. Definitely not a wire.
That almost looks like he is on a wire,
Yeah.
doesn't
I
it?
thought I saw a black wire. Yeah, I felt like I thought I saw something.
Must be difficult for a child actor to try and pull this kind of thing off as well. Because you're still growing, you're still learning to use. I'm talking like he's 4 years old.
Right.
But see,
So
this is where the mixtape kind of
yeah,
feel comes
right?
into it. I like how he snuck out of his house and starts up his roaring engine. Oh, I'm super sneaky. No one's going to hear me leave. Rum, rum, rum.
Yeah. You know, and your best friend got mauled being by himself out at night, and yet here he goes.
He likes them fireworks. So I have friends down in Tennessee, and I spent the first 4th of July I had in the US was with them. And they liked to do their own fireworks. I have no idea how legal it was. Tim had a daughter. Tim was essentially like a father figure to me. He had a daughter, and he set loads of fireworks off himself. And he said, "Hey, Dom, come down. Let's light some fireworks." His daughter, Amanda, about my age, said, "Well, I want to set some fireworks off too, Daddy." He says, "No, it's too dangerous for you." I should have known at this point that I was in trouble. So he hands me a rocket, and he says, "Hold on to this, Dom." Lights it. And I'm like, "Ooh, I've never done this before. This will be fun." And the wick just slowly fizzles away into the rocket. And I'm like, when's it going to go off? And at that point, Tim says, "Throw it, Dom, throw it, you idiot." So I threw it and it went off. Apparently, you're meant to hold a rocket that like this in the loosest possible grip you can, because any resistance at all and it won't fly. I learned that the hard way, and I almost
Oh my
threw my
gosh. You
hand off.
almost lost your hand.
Luckily, it was my right hand, and I'm left-handed, so I would have been
geez.
disfigured, but I could have written still.
Oh my gosh. You're like, yeah, you're supposed to tell me that when you hand me the rocket.
Yes! But no, I held on to this thing, expecting it to take me to the moon or something.
And was it like
Second
a bottle
time it flew.
rocket? And thank God you at least had it pointed away from you.
Now, this is the same wolf. He's just slowly walking up to him, creeping up. Okay, so that right there, he looks like a bear. And they designed it, and at King's request, to look more like a black bear than anything else, without really any identifying characteristics. And right there in that shot, it really did look like a bear.
Yeah.
One critic said it looked like Smokey the Bear with a hangover.
Yeah, it really just looked like a guy with a suit on.
Yeah.
Also, how good of a shot is Corey?
Right?
The only 2 shots he makes in the movie.
And like, how can you start off with like decapitating someone's head and like you get defeated by this kid? I don't. Maybe the world was just having an off night or something.
Maybe it's not the full moon. His powers of decapitation aren't quite as powerful.
Right.
Wild
It's his
turkey.
T-shirt.
You know, who drinks wild turkey right before bed? Woohoo!
was a bottle on the other side of the bed as well, and it looked just like cough medicine. I couldn't quite tell what it was. Oof, that's a 70s shirt if I've ever seen one.
Now, Megan follows. Who here remembers her from the 80s? And what role was she known for in the 80s? And it was a TV adaptation of a young adult book that was really popular. And she was in three of those films. Oh, we already got someone. Ariondo said Anne of Green Gables. Yes, Anne of Green Gables. That's where I remember her from. She was kind of like the girl next door, type. But she still is acting to this day. I think recently she had a role in the show Rain from like 2013 to 2017. So she's still doing her thing, still acting. Sharon, did you ever see Anne of Green Gables?
No, and every time I see this movie, I don't recall seeing her in anything else, but I know she was an active actress back then.
Mm-hmm.
So she probably wasn't doing a whole bunch of stuff, but yeah, she was out there. I just don't remember like anything that she's been in.
I do love these very sinister close-ups of everyone in town.
It actually makes me nervous. I was watching, I was like, okay, it's making me nervous.
Yeah, and here's this young girl trying to find out who has one eye.
And everyone stares at her.
Yeah.
Incredibly creepily. What are those gourd things in the background?
Yeah, that's exactly what they are. They're gourds of some kind.
Oh, cool. I'd be like, if you don't get away from my face, get out of here, little girl.
I'm having a steam.
Yes.
With a moist towelette.
Why are they all looking so creepily? This is
so sinister.
Yeah.
Everybody just has no emotions. It's that blank stare.
It's like the town, I guess the town is dying and they're dying inside or something. I don't know.
Very much the progression of the story, It.
Yes.
And over time, the townsfolk just become dead to what is going on.
Yes. Lizard Main says, okay, they might not be werewolves, but they're clearly hiding something evil in their closets. Get that sense.
Finally, I was getting thirsty. Another Stephen King trait. The corrupt church.
Okay, so just a heads up to the chat. Here in this scene, you can spot another clue, another reference to the 80s coming up in this scene. Let's see if you can spot it.
And also, wouldn't the priest be in incredible pain just having his eye gouged out?
Mm-hmm.
You'd think he'd probably be on some heavy pain meds or something, or like in the hospital, perhaps.
I think that does get brought up. Yeah, hoarding recyclables.
There was a can of light beer, like Miller Lite, that was in the cart. I don't know if that had been released in the 70s. Yeah, they're in the back too. Light.
There she's next to it. Yep. You see a Diet Coke can?
There it is. Yep, over on the right-hand side.
Yeah. Diet Coke wasn't released until 1982. Okay, gotta take a drink. My water.
Why did he keep the peacemaker? Is it because dogs retrieve sticks?
Oh, good one. Okay, so does he know she knows?
Oh, I think he does
Yeah.
at this point. Now that what we know about the Catholic Church, this even adds an extra layer of creepiness to him.
Mm.
And she knows, he knows, she knows.
Mhm.
So has anybody else but me seen the Netflix show Midnight Mass that recently came out?
I love Midnight Mass. Another Mike Flanagan expedition. The Man in My Eyes Can Do No Wrong. It feels like a Stephen King adaptation, doesn't it?
Yes. I saw the whole thing and binged it, and it felt very similar to this this story.
It does.
But again, it's set on an island and not in a small town, but yet very isolated. And things are going on just behind the scenes.
Now, who would take the time to get some magazines, cut out words and letters, glue them on a piece of paper? It's just too much time for me. I couldn't put that effort.
No, neither could I. I'd write it.
And this was before the internet, before computers.
Yes.
Definitely. That's how we communicated with each other. We wrote letters or called each other on the phone.
Sparky John asked, what other 1985 King adaptation came out? What was the name of it?
Movies?
Movies.
From an adaptation?
Yeah, from adaptation.
'85.
Someone guessed Overdrive. No. Oh, let's see. David Mays got it right. Cat's Eye. Cat's Eye came out in 1985.
When did Thinner come out? Was that late 80s or early 90s?
I think Thinner was like early 90s.
But yeah, Cat's Eye. I like Cat's Eye.
I think the book Thinner came out late 80s, right?
Mm-hmm. I think so.
I've got my list of his books. Oh, Thinner actually came out in 1984, the book.
The book, okay.
But I don't think they made the adaptation until the 90s.
No, I did not know, Sparky John, that Mike Flanagan took inspiration from Salem's Lot for Midnight Mass, but I can see it. I can feel it. Does Gary Busey gain tons of weight during this movie, or is it just me? Thinner was 1996. There we go.
Okay.
Perfect alternate title to this movie. The Hardy Boys meet Reverend Werewolf.
Speaking of King adaptations, the other half of the two Coreys, Corey Feldman, also starred in a Stephen King adaptation as a kid actor. What's the name of the story and the film? The story that was adapted in the film.
I can't remember the story's name, but I know the film, and I've mentioned it in this chat.
Boy, that should be a no-brainer. Why am I having a hard time figuring that one out?
There we go. Brain Wire
Brain
4
Wire.
has it.
Stand by Me.
Yes,
Yes.
Stand By Me. And Sparky John with
The
the
Body.
assist, The Body.
I would have guessed it was called The Body.
And Stand By Me was actually a very good adaptation of the story. Very well done.
Oh, yes, it was a beautiful movie. And anyone who thinks Stephen King can only do horror, just watch Stand By Me. It's heartwarming.
Yes.
Ooh, there we go. The musical sting goes that much more sinister. Everett McGill can rock an eye patch. He looks amazing.
But who wore it better though? Everett McGill or Snake Lipskin or
Snake Plissken from
Escape from New York?
I'm biased because Kurt Russell is my man crush. So
David May says Snake anytime. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with Snake.
But you know, he does rock the eye patch as a werewolf priest like no other.
Yep. Stalked by a priest.
How does he not notice? Oh, wait, no, he does have wing mirrors on his, Like he knows the priest's car.
Yeah, buddy, that's for you. That car is coming up towards you. He's just kind of casually looking at it.
Oof. And this scene does a great job of building tension. I often find that scenes like this don't build that much tension for me because I'm always like, yeah, he's gonna, turn the engine on and get away just in time. But this is a wheelchair. Like, it's a kid in a wheelchair. Adds that extra layer of tension. You're just like, oh God.
Well, we know that the priest has already killed one kid as the werewolf. He's not above doing it again.
Exactly.
How did that truck?
When my mom was watching this, she was like, oh my God. She was like, he can't die. Carla, tell me he doesn't die. He can't die. He's the main person. He's not going to die. But this is a really good tension building.
Yeah. Oh, it misses him by a gnat's wing.
Oh.
Musical sting with some hopefulness there. But of course, he's running out of fuel.
Right.
And what's he going to do? Run away afterwards?
And I don't know any wheelchair that could actually outrun a car. No matter how
silver bullet.
Powerful the motor is.
So Sharon, I think this is the scene, right, where he kind of talks about what you had mentioned earlier about his motivation.
It's also my favorite line in the movie.
now that he's been discovered, he is one disheveled priest.
Yes. Okay, so I understand about the woman, right, and the abusive drunk father, and maybe the drunk trained person. But what did Brady do? Was he just a little brat or a bully? I never understood how that lined up with his.
Well, given that that was when he started having those nightmares, I think it's implied that he's starting to lose control.
Oh.
And he says, I would never willingly hurt any child. I believe it's implied that he just had a lapse. But that's the danger of justifying actions like murder.
Right.
It's so easy to slip up.
Right. Right.
And that is interesting. He justifies the victims, but that would imply that as the werewolf, you know who your victims are.
Right.
So knowing who the victims are, you think you're saving their soul. So you're right. What would be the justification for going after a child, no matter how hungry you are, and no matter how animalistic your urges are? You would, even as a priest, you would say that's off limits.
Right.
But you're right. I think he's losing control and losing the ability to rationalize what he's doing, knowing full well he is doing it when he turns into a werewolf.
Right.
So now
another Stephen King trope.
Yeah. And so now he's openly saying to the kid, you know, I'm going to get you. So it's going downhill for the priest.
Yep.
Well, he's meddling with the Lord's work. Because the religious zealots in Stephen King stories are always the good guys in their own mind. Much like the lass in Midnight Mass or the lass in The Mist.
It's the same thing. You rationalize what you're doing because you think what you're doing is good. With that, and without getting into Midnight Mass, which I thought was brilliantly done.
At this point, I wonder if the sheriff is just kind of giving up. You know, half the town is gone. A bunch of people are dead. He still has no clue. Is he even trying to investigate anything? It doesn't
We've
look like it.
seen zero investigation.
Zero investigation.
Again, the adults, this is typical Stephen King. The adults see nothing. Even with all the evidence around them, all these people are getting killed. And nope, it's okay. No problem. Nothing to see here.
Nothing to see. I'm not going to call in
Nothing to see.
the state, call in for backup or help, or, and he's not going to call in, Mulder and Scully or anything like that.
Even with the townsfolk going on their rampage, unhinged with no law enforcement at all, and they get slaughtered, law enforcement still doesn't do anything. Is that one of the Stephen King tropes as well? I'm trying to think of some of his other stories that have that. Well, it also had it. Law enforcement didn't do much when the happenings were going on. What else?
Yeah. Lizardman 888 says cops suck more than half the time in horror movies unless they're actually open to the supernatural. Yeah, I would agree. I mean,
I've got another special guest for today's watch party. I recently introduced a new member to my family, a little puppy who we called Bones. And my wife has informed me that he will be joining us shortly. This was the first movie that Bones actually watched, and he enjoyed it. He watched it on Friday night. He was very taken by this film. He was just sitting there watching it.
And he watched the whole thing all the way through?
He did. He clearly slept through some of it. He got scared. I think he liked the werewolf scenes.
He's like, what's this? A clue?
Yeah, best
You know
ignore
what?
it.
He is clearly interested in what's going on. So at least he is investigating in his own way.
Right.
Yes, apparently he's just waking. So at this pinnacle moment,
Yeah.
I'll go and get the new pup.
See, you've already lost your position. There we go again with that bat. Who, I would run. I guess you'd be in shock and fear, so you wouldn't run. You would stay
It's your
there.
favorite bit. This is Bones, everyone.
Oh, look at Bones.
Oh, there's our puppers.
Don't you get any wise ideas? Okay.
Oh my gosh.
This really was a lackluster werewolf transformation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Clearly not the center of the scene.
Right. Well, it took them about 3 months to put together and finalize the costume, and they had 3-dimensional clay heads, and the entire costume was made of like foam, and was covered in actual bear hair. So they were committed to it being a bear. And the head was mechanically operated by like 6 people. So in that last scene, we can see the mechanics of the face trying to transform. I say trying to transform.
Trying,
That's
yeah,
it,
not
trying to
succeeding very
transform.
well.
No.
Bones has chewed many shoes. He hasn't devoured them yet. He's still got his puppy teeth.
Very calm for a puppy.
He's just woke up and apparently he wants to sleep more, don't you? One of his favorite places to sleep is, well, in either my arms or my wife's arms. We're spoiling him.
Dom, I think the verdict is in. I think Bones, thumbs up. Bones is so cute. Bones is a precious little fellow. Beautiful dog.
You liked Bones? No. I'll go give him back to his mommy.
I believe Bones is the first puppy that we have had in a watch party.
Yeah.
There we go.
He can be like our little mascot,
Yeah.
a little watch party mascot.
Hey, he can work for horror and sci-fi. He can be he can have a little thing that says, I'm a dog, not an escalator. And Bones for something skeletal, spooky. Also, this guy, who walks into a gunsmith.
What I like about this scene is it.
Okay, you know how I said I like the Dark Tower?
Uh-huh.
It kind of works throughout all of Stephen King's works, and a gunsmith that's a magician. I believe that the gunslingers of old were arguable, like they were called magicians and they made their own bullets similar to this.
Right. Yeah, and I was gonna say,
Maybe.
if it feels kind of like that, if this element feels very kind of like fairy tale, kind of old world story. And I like how it specifically brings in kind of that mythos about the silver bullet. Interestingly, that whole line about the silver bullet and werewolves came about from like a French story from like the 1800s called the Beast of Gavardavon, and where his family was slayed by a werewolf, and he went and he got all the family heirlooms and melted them down to a silver bullet and made the local priest bless them 3 times. So it's a very popular story that's kind of found its way into fiction, into the mythos about werewolves. Mhm.
And there's a little hint here that he knows exactly why he's making the bullet.
Mm-hmm.
Just like Gramps in the Lost Boys, you get a sense they know that the wise
Yeah.
old man knows exactly what's going on.
The
Hey
Dark Tower
Sharon,
connections.
Resolute
There we
Blood
go.
say, tell Sharon she's doing an awesome job and we are neighbors.
Oh, hey, Resolute Blood. Hey. That's right. He lives in a state next to me.
Again, the parents are like, we're gonna leave town even though there's a killer here. But we're gonna head out and go on vacation though. Take care of the kids.
Yep, they just hop on off.
Leave the kids in the charge of the alcoholic uncle.
Yep.
With the killer on the loose.
Let's go back to your mama. Say goodbye to Bones, everybody. He's going.
Bye, Bones.
This really is a great feel-good movie if you're a kid seeing this, because it empowers you. The parents are stupid. It makes you feel like parents are stupid.
Right.
Well, let's do it ourselves. We can solve this. The Hardy Boys can do it. Why can't I?
Right. The TV going off. Do you remember that, Sharon? Back in the day?
Yeah, when the TV used to actually end instead of continue.
Exactly.
Perfect timing. We are house training Bones and we have puppy pads on the floor and he just went tinkle. So he was a good boy. He waited. He didn't do it on me in my Gary Busey shirt. How is Uncle Gary now saying, no, this is too far?
Right. He's already committed by getting the silver bullet. Right.
Couldn't have been cheap.
Right.
Unless the old man was kind of a madman and did it for free.
They had hired a dancer to perform as the werewolf, but the producer didn't like that. So Everett McGill is actually in the suit.
I do love this fake out as well.
Mm-hmm.
I remember as a kid thinking, I think I even told my friends, like, oh, the trope of keep your back to a wall so that no one can come in and surprise you.
Right.
And this ruins that aspect, doesn't it?
Exactly. They did it in one shot. And so that's a real reaction from Gary Busey.
Yeah, never turn your back on an open window like that.
It's not even the window. I think it's the wall that he just bursts through.
Right.
You know, but if Jeannie says she saw him in the window and he's got his back to the window with the gun,
right.
You know, he's not taking her too seriously.
Right.
Here we go. They all look at the back door. A hint of the Jaws theme there.
Right. So that was a for real reaction.
Bursts through the damned wall. Clearly, the Wolfman's been drinking too much Kool-Aid.
And that's Busey doing his own stunts. He's like jumping off a trampoline and throwing himself into the furniture and into the glass.
I believe it.
He actually got hurt too.
He was probably drunk the whole time and didn't feel it anyway.
Oh.
Yeah. Ooh, that was.
Yeah.
Like that hurt.
The way he stumbles up. Yeah.
That's dedication to your craft, though, to do your own stunts.
Yeah.
You got the first eye, you got the left eye.
I only missed once, pal. Only once, pal. Wow. That kid's a good shot.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Mad 42, you'll shoot your eye out.
This transformation scene is actually done very well.
Yeah.
In transforming back into the human.
Exactly. It's done much better than transferring him from human to werewolf. As Parker John said, he spent hours, Everett McGill spent hours in makeup for that one shot, this transformation scene.
It paid off.
It should, yes, it did.
So how do you explain that to law enforcement in the morning?
Right.
Well, luckily,
what law enforcement is that?
Yeah, exactly. There's no one. There's just a naked priest in your house with his eyes gouged out. Oh.
Now, some people complain about this ending. They think it's a little too sugary sweet for a horror movie, but I like this ending.
We've already discussed that Stephen King's strength is in heart. Even The Shining, spoiler for the book, it's a story about redemption rather than the horrible, nasty, drunk dad that is in the movie. Now, I love the movie. I think the movie is a fantastic film of The Shining, but it's not the book at all. And I understand why Stephen King isn't a fan of it, because it's a personal story to him about redemption.
Did you read the book first and then see the movie?
I did. I read the book first and then I saw the movie, and initially I was not happy with it. And then I grew to love it just because of the filmmaking.
That was my impression, because I read the book and Stephen King's vision, then to see the movie, which turned out to be not. It was very disheartening. But the movie itself, if you hadn't read the book, was very good.
I would recommend watching Dr. Sleep. It is
okay. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
And that
So
was
that
Silver
is
Bullet.
Silver Bullet. Now
Yay.
it grossed about 12 million at the box office. It suffered from poor marketing. The posters were pretty much uninspiring for the film, and I don't think they really knew how to market it. I don't know if they really believed in their film. And then also Commando, I think, came out around the same time. And people
Oof.
might have been tired of werewolf movies and wanted to see some Arnold kick some butt.
Yeah.
So
Arnold spent a lot of time in the 80s with his shirt off in the movies. So
yes.
yeah.
But one cool poster I found, if you can Google it, is the Spanish poster of Silver Bullet. Is really, really cool. I posted it in the chat. I think if they would have used
Miedo
that
Azul.
one, that might have attracted more people. So, you know, the critics were mixed. You know, the reception to the film was mixed. One critic said that the human drama is what gives the movie this extra warmth. And that and making Marty disabled makes him have to be creative about how to solve problems, about how to get out of tough spots, and it makes him more of an attractive hero. What are your thoughts about that? About kind
The
of
thing
that.
I love about
Mhm.
the character of Marty in this is that no one, apart from really his parents, no one in the town treats him as anything less than an equal. Even
Mhm.
his bastard friend who makes him climb a tree, everyone
Right.
treats him like a human first and foremost. And growing up with my brother who was disabled, I often found that strangers would treat my brother Ben in a more childish manner, treat him with kid gloves, and
Mhm.
he wanted to be treated like anyone else. And I think it's
Yeah.
very nice when a disability is part of a character, but it's not the character.
Right.
Marty's character isn't that he is a wheelchair-bound kid. He's an investigative kid that thinks on his feet, ironically, and gets the job done in the face of hardship. And it can just be a metaphor for any hardship in life. There's challenges that you have to overcome. And as long as you don't give up, like Uncle Reb tells him, like he doesn't have any marks against him. And that
Right.
early interaction between Uncle Reb and Marty's mom, whose name I can't remember at the moment, I'm just going to call her mom. It's powerful because of that statement. Marty's
Mhm.
mom is saying he has so many strikes against him already. He doesn't need any more. It's so easy
Right.
for him to give up. And yes, but it's easy for anyone to give up. It's easy for
Right.
all of us to give up. And facing those struggles, overcoming them, it's easy to represent when it is something physical, but
Mhm.
it's a metaphor.
Yeah. Yeah. How about you, Sharon?
It's interesting. This is a very good Stephen King adaptation. That's very insightful, Dom. And it makes me think back in the 80s, how many other child stars were portrayed on the screen as having a disability. And if they were, was that disability part of the character where it was amplified as this is a disabled person? Or
Mhm.
as in this movie, was it just treated as this is who the kid was? He happened to be in a
Right.
wheelchair, but it really didn't define him because he's still the same kid that he was if he hadn't been in a wheelchair.
Exactly.
And that's with life. If you happen to be in a wheelchair, it doesn't change who you are. You just have to be in a wheelchair.
If you look at the title as
So-
well, Silver Bullet, face value, it's the chair, right? But it's also the tool that Marty uses to fell the beast at the end.
Right. Right. To
So
be the
it's got a
hero.
double meaning. Yeah.
Exactly. No, I love it. I love how they made Marty just full character. You know, he had a little girlfriend at the beginning, and he has
He
his
was pissed when she left
buddy.
town.
Okay. And yeah, and he's climbing trees, he's like climbing out windows at night. So I loved how they didn't make his disability a big thing. And when it was brought up from the parents' perspective, and it was a pushback on that to say, hey, he's still a kid, let's let him be a kid, you know. But no, I love this movie. I think it has a lot of warmth to it, a lot of heart. And I like the ending. I like the ending, how, again, the focus is on the relationship between the brother and the sister. Now, would you want to see this remade or rebooted or anything like that? No. I
No.
think it would lose the magic. I really do. I think it would lose the magic of the film. So I want to thank everyone for this fun and entertaining watch party. Thank you, Sharon, for joining us again. Dom for joining us. This will be my final watch party as the host. Andrew Dalton is returning next week. And so I just want to say thank you to everyone. It's been a blast doing these, coming out from behind the laptop, out of the chat. So I will be back in the chat next week. Our watch party for the next week for the Sci-Fi Discord is Megaforce with a Serial After Midnight and the return of Andrew Dalton. And then next up for us in the 80s Horror Discord is one of my favorite underwater creature features, Deep Star 6. Deep Star 6.
Yay.
Yes, Deep Star 6. Starring Nia Peoples. Okay. So so that will be our next film in the 80s Horror Discord. And then for 80s Sci-Fi, we have a special treat coming up for you after Megaforce, but I'm going to hold off on that announcement. But again, thank you everyone for joining us. For us here in the States, it's turkey time is coming up this week with Thanksgiving. So I wish everyone safe travels, good times with your family. Try not to kill each other, because I don't have enough bail money to bail you out.
Don't call Carla if you end up in jail.
Don't call me. Exactly. I cannot help you. So yeah. So thanks everyone, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you, Carla. And thank you all. And it's been a pleasure to be here. And I will be, maybe I'll come back.
Yes, we would love to have you back.
If my time allows, and if everything works out, I'll come back. And it's certainly different doing it this way than typing in the chat. It's a different feel and a different, it's great. I love this. I don't know if I'd want to do it every week. So good for you, Carla, and everybody, and Dom, for you guys being in front of the camera week after week. God love you for it.
I'll definitely try and bring Bones back for a repeat visit as well.
Yes, we're gonna have to give him a little t-shirt. We're gonna have to give him like In Search of Darkness, like little t-shirt.
I was just gonna say, make a little doggy In Search of Darkness 3 t-shirt.
Yes.
Yep. I'm gonna have to get that sorted. Little clothes for him, because it's getting cold here in Vegas. Surprisingly, the desert can get cold. So he needs his extra t-shirts.
All right.
Okay.
Well, thank you all. It has been wonderful. And we'll see you all next time.
Okay.
See you next time, everybody.